news coming in on the economic front, largely speaking, has been positive over the last couple of months. The latest quarterly data for the GDP is also good because we're in the black finally, technically out of a recession, growing at 0.4%. But is employment keeping up? That's a very important question because so far, even as the recovery in India after COVID-19 has been a decent one, the number of jobs has not kept up. India has been suffering from higher unemployment rates than could be tolerated for the last few years, and it's a good indicator to track closely. And the person helping us do this always, and one of the foremost experts on the subject, is Mahesh Vyas of CMIE. Mahesh, great to have you on the show again, and I want to talk about your latest dispatch on the employment data which is coming in. And you say that Feb unemployment rate is at 6.9% versus 7.8% in February 2020. This effectively means that our unemployment rates are now at pre-COVID levels. But you also say in your report that this is not worth celebrating. Why is that?
So the unemployment rate can come down, and it can only reflect one thing, that the number of people who are looking for jobs and are not finding them has reduced. But this is only good if the number of people who are employed already is also increasing. But if the number of people who have found employment is decreasing and the number of people who are unemployed is also decreasing, it's not a matter of celebration. It means that the labor markets in India are shrinking. There are less people who are offering themselves to work, and that's not a thing to celebrate at all. It just so happens that the ratio of those people who don't have jobs to all of those who are seeking jobs has shrunk. But it has shrunk because the total number of people working has also shrunk. So in a developed economy, where the labor force is more or less constant and people cannot afford not to work, the unemployment rate is a very important indicator. But in a country like India, where the number of people seeking jobs is not high enough, our actual aim should be to increase the labor force, what we call as increase the labor force participation rate. So merely looking at the unemployment rate is not good because we have a very low labor force participation rate, and that number has been declining.
You know, you also go on to talk about two important indicators. One is the labor force participation rate, which is the number of people who are seeking employment, and the other is the employment rate, the number of people within employment. And you say that both of these indicators are still low. You also say it's an elusive dream that these will return to pre-COVID levels. Why do you feel that way when other indicators in the economy are booming? When we talk to large companies, they say that they're expanding their hiring plans and investment plans. You have the GDP improving, you have GST collections improving, you have a lot of consumer indicators improving. Why do you think that this will not translate into more employment and a larger labor participation force?
There are two reasons why I say that this return to pre-COVID levels, insofar as these two important indicators are concerned, the labor force participation rate and the employment rate, will remain elusive for two reasons, as I was saying. One is that the GDP recovery that we see, and it's commendable, it's a great recovery. It's really beyond anybody's imagination, and we must be very happy to see the GDP grow. But the GDP growth effectively reflects the growth of the organized sectors in India. True, there are some organized sectors in it, like agriculture, but there are large sections of the unorganized sector, like, for example, the small and medium enterprises, the micro enterprises, which are not covered. There are many services sectors, industries, which are extremely in unorganized sectors, very informal, very small size. Those are not covered because we don't have a statistical system that's robust enough to be able to capture the economy in those strata. What we see is that the organized sectors have been doing well. They have been growing well, and that shows up in the GDP numbers, but the unorganized sectors are not doing. And I think the survey that CMI does is a better representation of the economy, because we go to households, to a very large sample of households, and we capture the data from all kinds of people, people working in the organized sectors and the unorganized sectors. Their employment could be formal or informal. They could be in any sector. They could be Uber drivers. They could be delivery boys. They could be IAS officers. Everybody's there in this. So a more comprehensive statement of the economy tells us that employment is not growing. Now, because the GDP is only organized sector and the unorganized sectors are not doing very well. Therefore, I think the first reason is because of the non-performance of the unorganized sectors, we will not do very well. Second reason why this number is elusive is that while we have recovered the employment rate and the labor force participation rate, we have not recovered it to the pre-COVID levels. Both these ratios are approximately 1.5 to 2 percentage points lower than they were before the pandemic. And this is important, before the pandemic, both these ratios were in a steady declining trend. And we have just returned to the same declining trend. So it's like we had a declining trend, then we had this big abyss into which we fell and came back to the same old trend. The trend tells us that the labor force participation rate in India is falling, the employment rate is falling, and we have merely returned to that. And that's the reason why I believe that these ratios coming back is elusive.
You know, you also say that overall, 10 million jobs have been lost between July 2020 and Feb 2021 as compared to the same period in the previous year. Can you give us a sense qualitatively which kind of jobs are these? Are these jobs in the organized sector, private sector jobs, blue collar jobs? What kind of jobs are these?
I don't have those numbers available yet. I will have it in about 4 or 5 days from now. Those numbers are there, but they require to be studied a little bit. But the little that I've seen of that is that this 10 million job loss is more or less equally spread across all kinds of jobs. Agriculture has gained employment. Non-agriculture, which means non-farm jobs, have shrunk. Farm jobs have increased. Within the non-farm jobs, the biggest hit is in the daily wage earners and the very, very informal workers in the unorganized sectors. The hit in the salaried jobs that we had seen earlier has reduced a bit. Earlier, that was the biggest stress, till around August or so. And we were very worried about the salaried jobs being the biggest recipient of the hit. But now it looks like they have recovered a bit. They have recovered actually quite substantially. But the daily wage workers and informal workers in unorganized sectors, that's where the hit is. At the cost, the gainers are, of course, they're losing jobs over here and going back to the farms.
Okay. I want to also get your take on what the government of Haryana has done recently. And it is a bid to improve the employment rates in the state of Haryana. As per a lot of data, including your own, from what I've seen quoted, Haryana sometimes tops the list often in the highest unemployment rates. And this is a poll promise which is now being put into practice, which is reserving 75% of jobs in the private sector under 50,000 rupees a month for those who are locals. Do policies like this actually help improve the rate of employment?
They help create some perceptions in some quarters of people. But I don't think it'll help, even in terms of perceptions, because this is not going to help people actually find jobs. It's going to be detrimental. It's like pushing the can further down the street. It's a very poor law. it can prove to be very counterproductive. So what's going to go wrong? People who have jobs, the established industries, and people who are employed in those are unlikely to get impacted severely. Because to the extent that I've read, I think anyone who has been living in Haryana for the last 5 years will qualify as a local. And if I'm right on that, then I don't think it'll hurt too many people who have got jobs in industries in Haryana already, even if they are not into quotes locals, in the sense that you could be a Bihari or you could be a Tamilian or you could be anybody else from any part of the world. So long as you've been living in Haryana for the last 5 years, you may be considered to be a local, in which case the impact on the existing industries and existing employment will not be much. The problem is in finding new industries coming over there. They will be very, very reticent now to lay bets on Haryana, because to find new people who are necessarily local reduces the pool from where you can get talent. And I think that's going to be detrimental. So what's going to happen is that Haryana will not suffer from anything because of this law by the current industries, but it will suffer by not being able to track industries like it has attracted in the recent past. It has got several advantages, like being close to Delhi, being close to markets. It's been a big winner in many ways. Many of those can come under stress. But the bigger takeaway from this, the bigger takeaway is many states are being pushed into a corner to take these steps, because we are not solving a macro problem. It's a problem for the country as a whole, that there is a problem. You can shove this problem out of Haryana, but it's going to be there somewhere else then. After some time, you'll have no place to hide. So I think we require a bigger solution, and these ones are not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mahesh Vyas, for speaking with us today. And well said. This is something that could backfire. It could be counterproductive. And you can't really shove the can down the road as far as unemployment is concerned beyond a certain point.